If you're a real estate agent and you want to learn more about how to leverage your personal relationships, your local community, referral partners, this is going to be a great conversation because I'm here with Suzy South, who has been an agent for 16 years. She's been a team leader at Keller Williams. She's been a productivity coach at Keller Williams. And now she's a new agent mentor here at Real Broker. And so what we're going to talk about is how she's been able to achieve success in her life, how she's coaching agents to achieve success, and what she is doing right now here at Real Broker. So Suzy, thanks for helping us.
Hey, you're welcome. Well, I'm excited to be here. It's going to be real fun.
By the way, you're down in beautiful Sarasota, Florida. I'm here in Maryland. How are things down there?
Well, it's pretty hot right now because we're entering the summer. Yep, I'm in the Sarasota Lakewood Ranch, more specifically if you happen to know the area. So I've got the beaches, I've got all of that. And so we have quite a bit of business that is local, as well as those that are coming in for a vacationing and wanting to have that second home. So we're always busy.
So you got started as a real estate agent 16 years ago. Things have changed quite a bit since then. But with that being said, what was the strategy that you started out with? How has that progressed over time?
When I started off as an agent, I had never been in the real estate business at all. I come from, our family had a bakery and I had no idea how to do this. I was fairly techie. And if you remember when Craigslist wasn't creepy, that was something that I just dived into. And I was really fortunate in a lot of ways, I think, because I was able to produce my own leads very quickly and stayed busy almost at the beginning. And not to say that I made tons of mistakes and it was hard. However, I found my little way of doing things, and it was something that brought in the business. Obviously, it's not something that works the same way today. Craigslist probably going to bring you some weirdos, so don't want to do that. However, finding something that is working for you is really what you need to do. And there's so many different ways that you can do that.
So you started off by posting on Craigslist and folks that way. What did that evolve to?
What it evolved to is, for about 2.5 years, I was an agent. I had a business partner that we did business together, which was great. Kind of nice to have somebody, if you are newer, that you can lean on if you have something else or a couple of clients and you need to kind of juggle things around. So good little pro tip for that.
For sure.
And then within a couple of years, I happened to go to a dinner and I sat next to someone who had Keller Williams office that was looking for a team leader. So I was a Keller Williams agent and I went to an event and they happened to be looking for a team leader and I sat next to him. From then on, I started the process and was a team leader for a few years, which most of the time I loved it. It's a bit of a brutal position. It was a whole lot of fun and I learned so much. I was really excited to be in that kind of a position for a while.
Yeah, definitely. The hard thing about being a team leader is definitely doing multiple different jobs. You've got to juggle a lot of different things. You've got to go about getting leads. You still got to work. You've got to train other agents that are working on your team. So with that being said, for going about getting new business, what have you found to be the best strategy that's worked for you, and why is that the case?
For myself and many of the agents that I've worked with when it comes to training and coaching, which is something I've done for most of my business is coaching other agents, has been the relationships either already have. So we all have friends and family, and you kind of read about that. It's like asking your friends and family for business first. However, the second part of that, because some of us, myself included, I don't have a really large family and I've moved a few times. I had to develop that. And something that worked consistently, no matter where I have gone, is building some strategic relationships with vendors and creating that relationship that I can go back and forth. I'm sending them business, they're sending me business. And that has always been something that is very helpful for me. It's who I am. I can do a lot of those other things. However, having a conversation with somebody that happens to have tile business or any of that, and they want to grow, I want to grow, I just feel like that's just something that's in me, and it works out really very well.
So in other words, making relationships with especially your vendors and probably other community partners, that's kind of been the primary strategy. So with that being said, what are the top businesses or companies that you found to be the best strategic partners to go after?
Many of us kind of think of, okay, lenders, obviously. Well, if you think of some of those businesses like the lenders and roofers and even the tile, like I mentioned before, which I mentioned that on purpose. But if you think of lenders, they are working with hundreds of real estate agents. So the likelihood of them sending you business versus the agent who is their top agent that's really they're making the most money off of is probably going to be kind of low. It doesn't mean that it can't happen and you should have those partnerships. You need to set your expectation for that. If you go a little bit to the side of that, and that's why I said something like a tile company. So where I am in Florida, we all have tile floors is a very common thing. I lived in New Jersey for a period of time. In New Jersey, I would have looked for those people that have the wood floors, obviously. Sure. So looking for those types of people that you can have a business relationship with. If you have been in business for a while, like myself, and you may remember places like BNI and Latip and all of these other companies, they would have organizations that you had to pay for. Well, with social media and internet, don't have to be part of those types of organizations anymore. And you can do so much more, hit so many more people. Finding my goal and anyone that I'm working with that is looking to, maybe they've been in the business for a while and they haven't done this yet, is to get 10. You could take the year and get 10. If you get more, that's great. Set your goal for whatever makes sense to you and look for 10 people that you think and they agree to having a relationship with you to where they're going to give, whether it's 3 pieces of business to you on the monthly or 3 leads on the monthly basis that hopefully will then turn into pieces of business. And then by the end of the year, you have these people that are constantly sending you business as well as you have to do it the other way around too and be sending them business. That can be a really great way for you to really double your business even in a year.
Yeah, I can totally see that. And definitely been in those situations where I was sending a handyman a ton of business and a contractor a ton of business. And soon they were just like, hey, Jonathan, I got somebody. They just said that they're going to be replacing their roof because they're selling their house. I think you should get in touch with them. And I was like, hey, man, if you could introduce me, I'd be really appreciative. And those things work out. So
you have to ask them, say, this is my business. I'm going to be sending you business, which will be something that improves your bottom line at the end of the year. I do have an expectation that you're going to send me business from time to time. And part of that is there's so many agents that never ask that question. They really don't. And you may have to remind them. You may have to send them a text message.
And there's different ways to say it, right? I mean, you can be very direct and be like, I'm going to send you business. I expect the same. Or I'm sure you can be a little bit more like, hey, I'm going to send you business as much as I possibly can. If you could send me business as well, I would love that. Just a little bit.
You can do it either way. And so for myself, I am a little bit on the direct side. However, because I was with Keller Williams for a very long time, I did learn quite a bit about finding out what type of a person that it is that I'm speaking to. Sometimes it is, we're both business people. We really want to grow our business. I believe that we want a business to grow our business. Is that correct? And they're probably going to say yes. Yeah. And then I really do want to grow. And there are a number of people that I know that are handymen or tile people. I really want to have a strategic partnership with somebody that from time to time in the next year, I promise I'm going to make sure that I send you 5 people in the next year or 10 people, whatever you think is realistic. And then what I'd like to, it may not work out and I get that, but I would really like to hear that you're on board for that too. You're going to be in situations and you're going to see something online, somebody's asking for somebody. If you can put my name out there and we can just like make this work and hopefully it works out for the 2 of us. To me, and I hope, that doesn't really sound salesy. It doesn't sound, first of all, it's authentic. Well, I would plan on doing that. And I hope that they would plan on doing that to me as well.
Absolutely. So would your number one kind of like category for strategic partnerships be the home improvement folks?
No, I would probably say looking for those that are more in the financial industry, but again, not the lender. I happen to live in an area where there are a lot of people that are retiring or they have a second home. That does put you from a financial perspective in a certain level of financial freedom. Those people that are planning their retirement. So there's financial advisors that specialize in retirement, trusts, things like that. That could very well be your number one. Again, with that, they probably know a lot of agents. However, there are lots of people that get into that industry every year. If you're able to find out who just got their license, and honestly, you can do a lot of times, you can just do this out online. It's like, hey, is there anybody that knows of anyone who just started with, and just name some of the big brokerages or anything like that? Or is there anybody that has recently passed? Just like throw that out there. And the thing is, it's a different way of asking. You're not asking for who is the top person. Because if you ask for who the top person is, they probably have 15 agents that they work with. You want the one that's getting on the ground. And the thing is, they're typically hungry, just like you are, hopefully, if you're listening to this part of the video, because they want to have business and you just have to create that partnership. And it doesn't stop with that first phone call, by the way. You do need to nurture that relationship. This is something that, whether it's once a month or every now and again, that you are sending them a message, giving them a call, meeting up for coffee or any of that types of thing. You're new to the business. I want to grow my business. Mind spending half an hour with me with a cup of coffee, and let's see if there's something that we can do together to help grow our business.
So in other words, you'd be looking at maybe a post on the Facebook group of like, hey, anybody who's passed their local financial advising exam, if you're a new agent, but perhaps you've been in the business 5-10 years and you've already got a good stream of business. Maybe in that case, you can kind of go upstream a little bit more and say, hey, you want to know some really good financial advisors. And I'm sure that basically who you can go about creating a partnership with is going to be dependent upon where they're at in their business and where you're at. And you kind of match yourself up accordingly. Would that be about right?
Well, yeah, absolutely. If you are in the business, I've been in the business for a long time. I meet people all the time.
16 years is good.
I know, it's like 40 years. And I'm like, I don't know if I could do this for 40 years. That would put me in a very different part of my life. Creating a small group where you meet, once a week might be a little bit tough. However, once a month, it's like, hey, I'm looking for 10 people that want to have a business relationship where we have a business networking group once a month, 7:30, name a trendy / easy to get to kind of place that's local. And you'd be surprised. There's some people that are kind of like looking to fill that spot.
You're always going to be surprised because you might, for instance, be talking with somebody that you think is out of your league, but they just like you or they want to help somebody else that is on the come up. And I think most business owners do feel that way, that if they feel very comfortable in their business and they see somebody working hard and they're on the come up, as I said, they want to give them a helping hand, especially if you've shown that you're willing to help them out too. It shows some good faith.
Absolutely.
So making relationships with referral partners, essentially, that's the strategy. What are some of the strategic benefits of going about trying to get new business that way?
I'm going to leverage it a little bit with something that kind of goes along the same road. Because I've worked with so many agents in my productivity coaching role and in the business that I do now, I have seen so many times where there are agents that develop their own social media. Well, follow with me and I'll explain some things. Like where I live in a community that has about 600 homes. And while many of them know, because I've been here for 7 years, they know that I'm a real estate agent. Something that happened, and this was before I moved in, somebody else had actually done this. There's a group, it happens to be a group of women. So we call it a book club, which honestly, this is what the Facebook group is called. I think it's called Book Club, and book is slashed out. And then it says, really, we just drink wine. That is all that we do. A book is never opened and everybody knows it.
Well, everyone's a book. Hopefully
everyone's a book. And you're really weaving into it way more than you should, because it really is. That's all we're looking at. But for the kids out there, it's a book club. However, that's like within your community. Whoever you are, find out what that is. So my family, we baked, we did cakes and all this kind of stuff. So I'm in some of those communities as well, to where I've built relationships. So that's just a little bit of a side note with that. But I wanted to get into, when I've worked with agents, there's so many agents newer are looking to build their business. Maybe this year has been a little weird as far as the market. And they're looking, it's like, okay, the strategy that I did last year doesn't work today. For myself, the strategy of Craigslist, all of a sudden, one day it changed. They started charging, and you could no longer post. I could post 100 posts like in a couple of days. And they stopped that one day. My business dried up from that piece. So for what I have seen, and if you go into the social media realm, like the book club, I have had so many agents that just kind of figure out what it is that they like to do. Sourdough bread is really big right now, or maybe it was last year. I don't know if it's still big. Anyway,
My
I see it a
wife
lot.
is growing culture for
It's a
sourdoughs.
whole
I think it
thing.
is. I think it's still up.
Totally. It's really a whole thing. But whatever you have, there's moms groups, there's groups that do the book/wine groups, things like that. Find out something that you truly enjoy. Like I said, I'm part of like a lot of baking. A lot of people don't really even think of that. And yet there's a whole baking community around my area. So this relationship building that you can have with whether it's vendors or people in the area, and there are so many ways that you can tie that part in. I could, and I don't necessarily do this as much anymore. COVID kind of made things weird too. But I used to bake cookies and bake bread and bake all these things because it's something that I did. I always made sure that it was okay with whoever it was that I was sending it to. But I would go and deliver those types of things to just to say hi because I enjoyed it. I truly enjoyed doing those types of things. So whatever it is that you really enjoy, there's probably a segment of the population that you can kind of tap into to be around those people. Because not everybody is the one that's going to have a business meeting. That's just not who they are. I don't want to dress up in a suit and stand there and talk and do that. No, I don't want to do that. However, if you are in like one of the moms groups and you just have this like way of getting people together and doing groups of organized sports and things like that in your community, there's so many different ways that you can really just build relationships with those people. That's my little tangent on that.
And my takeaway from that is you've got ways to build up connections within the local community from what you're saying. You've got strategic, more business-centered relationships between you and the financial folks in the area, you and the home improvement folks, you and the other people that are in business that can send each other referrals. And then in addition to that, you've got the more personal community type relationships, which can be built through the book clubs, through the sports clubs, through any of the other types of social clubs that you might encounter. Do you find that those are beneficial because you can kind of like leverage your personality and the folks that are typically going to those social clubs tend to be more affluent, or are there other benefits that I'm not thinking of?
If you are part of a group where whatever that group is designed around, it is something that is going to cost money for whether it's parent groups, things like that. Yes, it's probably someone you're not necessarily going to be going through the struggles of them being able to get pre-approved, let's say, because again, that part of it, this is your business. The other thing is you're building relationships with those people. And if they are starting to see you, and you have to bring yourself out. Now, I am one of those like weirdos, like during COVID, I was really okay for a period of time of like not going to big groups. That's not where I thrive. I mean, I can do it. I'm still on stage. I stand in front of 30 people to teach a class. I do all of those things. However, naturally, I do enjoy like a one-on-one and just kind of like chilling. That's naturally where I love to be. With those groups, what's happening is you're building that relationships, and make sure that you know who those people are. You're with 10 people. There's probably going to be somebody that either a past life or maybe they currently have a certain skill set that they are part of. That person is then going to be introduced. Let's say 3 months later, you're talking to someone and they need to talk to someone about putting together their trust or their will or something like that. You then are able to say, hey, I know someone. And because you actually know them personally, you're spending time with them because you're doing these sports get-togethers with the community or all these types of things. You know them. So you're seeing them as a person who is reputable and things like that, and you're able to match them up. When you become that person, I mean, one of the greatest compliments I had from a neighbor not that long ago, they texted me they needed something, and they were like, well, you're the person who happens to know who to call. It's like this obscure question. Well, you just seem to have all these like resources. That is a talent that anybody can develop. You don't have to be the life of the party and all that, but people are thinking of you as a resource, and you're consistently connecting people, and people will connect people to you.
I like that a lot. They say you got to dig your well before you're thirsty. And what you're describing is you providing, because like then people tactically are going to say, okay, well, Suzy, I get it. I should, if I'm a guy, and I've been thinking about this for a long while, I want to join the cigar club nearby my house.
Perfect.
Because, the guys that are out there smoking cigars, when you smoke a $20 cigar every day, you tend to have some disposable income, and it tends to be a good like situation Another guy I know is
Yeah.
a super high top producer. He loves the fancy cars. So he goes to the
Yeah.
BMW clubs, he goes to all the cars and coffee. And so he's able to meet with a lot of guys that love really high end cars. And
Yeah.
those lead to some really profitable relationships, on both ends.
Exactly.
It seems to me that there's two ways in which you can go about like building friends, building relationships in those types of communities without seeming salesy or inauthentic from what you're describing.
No.
That it seems like you're describing being a connector as being a resource. So that's one way. You can either connect with somebody, find out what they kind of like need, how you can help them, connect them with the right person that will be able to help them, or you join the group and you be the resource around that particular topic. So in other words, maybe
Right.
side of someone new to the cigar shop, I can say, hey, listen, like you may not have heard about this new cigar that's come out of Nicaragua or whatever. I've tried this new cigar. You should totally try it. And they're like, oh yeah, this is awesome. And so maybe
Yeah.
you provide value within your group, or maybe if you know how to bake and you're like, hey, this is a great recipe, this is a good book, or this is a good bottle of wine that you should try.
Right. All of that.
The resource.
You're absolutely right. And so you have to be that person who is saying those things, whether it's on social media, because that's where you're going to have the largest group of people that you can consistently be interacting with. However, again, I'm a little bit better in person than I am on social media, as much as we all need to be doing that too. So don't dismiss that. But you're going to know about the cigars. I'm going to know about the baking. My husband is the car guy. So I know weird things about supercars. However, I can't walk into the Cars and Coffee and know anything, and nobody's going to listen to me, but I can go with him. I can totally do that. Yeah. So there's all these things. We all have something. It doesn't have to be something that you are great at. You can be learning too as you go along, and be genuine. Don't be out there trying to that you know about cigars unless you do. However, you can start reading about it. And I saw this. Has anybody tried it? That's perfectly normal. You don't know. You're asking for other people to tell you about it. And you can do that in just about any type of a group. Yeah.
I've got two really tactical questions for you. And then I do want to get your story about your transitions from brokerages. And the first question is about how do you pick the club? And then the second would be, how do you then go about introducing the fact that you're a realtor to those folks in a way that's not salesy? You've got big groups, you've got small groups, you've got groups that maybe are going to be of more affluent folks versus folks that, maybe you're going to align more with that hobby or that craft or whatever it is that's binding everybody together. The Chet Holmes and Ultimate Sales Machine, I point backwards because I got some books. I got his book. But Chet Holmes, he says that in any given market, you've got 1% to 3% of people in that market who are looking to buy now, a certain percentage of folks that are like thinking about doing that thing, and then some people that are just not problem aware or what have you. With that being said, how do you go about determining whether or not a community is a good community for you to invest your time into?
I'm glad that you said what is a good community, because you can get sucked into a community that may not be good for you psychologically. I mean, it could be just a group that is just filled with a lot of people that are going to spend a whole lot of time and not necessarily and be more negative. So I would definitely say look for those that everybody's looking to help everybody. You'll find a whole lot more joy in that personally, and also a whole lot more business. And we happen to be in the type of business that it is very normal for people to have real estate questions. And anytime that I meet someone, I always will find out what it is that they do. And again, I live in an area where there are a lot of people that are retired, or they may not be working 9 to 5 type of thing. And yet I have a lot of those too. When you meet somebody, find out who they are and find out what they do. If they haven't asked you, they will ask you when you ask what they do. And so that simple question, hey, Jonathan, it's really nice to meet you. What is it that you do? Or what do you like to do is even a really good question, because if you're in a social environment, that might be, if you were at the cigar, like, what's your favorite cigar? And it's probably going to lead into like, what do you do 9 to 5? So find out what they do. And then when they say that, you probably know somebody that you could connect with them. And so if they were to say that they love cigars, let's say you're not in a cigar, then they say, or they love supercars. It's like, that's all they care about. It's like, have you met my husband? And then it would probably go into a little bit more of a natural conversation, and you could have a little bit of that, but it will turn around to what it is that you do. And so much of the time, people are going to say, what did they say 2 years ago when you'd put something on the market for 30 minutes and you'd have 3 offers? That was everybody wanted to know about about it. Well, now it's like, well, yeah, I'm seeing like a lot of price reductions. And go in and just have a short, do not stay on the subject of real estate. If you are in a group that is cigars or cars or my book slash wine group, don't stay on the subject of real estate. Get to know these people, ask them questions about who they are, because that's how you're going to build a relationship.
Yeah, I like that. And one of the things that I have thought about, and like it has happened to me that I'll ask somebody like, "Hey, what do you do for work?" Or "What do you do
Mm-hmm.
at the time?" Or "What do you do throughout the day?"
Yeah, what do you do for fun or whatever? It could be anything.
Some people who are like, I know are retired, I'm not going to say, "Hey, what do you do for work?" I say, "Hey, so what do you do with all your free time?" Or "What do you do with
Yeah,
all your time?" And sometimes they don't ask me, but what I find also is a good follow up question sometimes is like, "Hey, what do you got going on for the day?" Or "What do you got going on, for the later today?" Or what you do today? And then they'll say whatever they've got going on. And then I can always say, "Oh yeah, well, I got 2 showings today, and I'm closing on it."
right.
So, I could talk about my work, and I just say, "Oh, these are the things that I'm doing," and then they'll infer, "Oh, you're a real estate agent." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah," and that is
Fine.
all you need to just kind of
That's
introduce.
all you need. I always say there's probably 10 different types of conversations that we have with people that we don't really know all that well. Find out how to have those 10 conversations. Somebody is going through something good, bad, and there may be a way that you can help or connect. And then there are people who are just thriving. I live in an area where a lot of people move to retire. It's like they're loving Florida. Well, I could spend a couple of minutes saying, well, you know what? There's like 10 things that anybody that moves to this area, I always tell them they should be checking, that they could check out. Those types of things. Figure out how to have those conversations with people in your area, and there will be ways that you can bring that into new conversations.
One
Yep,
third last tactical question that I have for you is,
sure.
you had mentioned before that when you make these strategic partnerships between vendors, you oftentimes do need to have that initial conversation. It's like, "Hey, I'm going to send you business, you send me business," but
Mm-hmm.
then you have to kind of remind them over the course of time. So,
Yes.
do you feel as though when you make these more personal relationships that you need to remind people that you're a real estate agent when you see them on occasion? And if so,
Yes.
how do you go about doing that?
I find that social media is probably the best way to do that. And I can go in and out of this. If I have a lot of things going on in my personal life, I tend to stay away from doing the things I'm supposed to be doing, let's say. However, from a business perspective, you really can put things out there that are real estate related. And there's lots of ways to do that. This could be a very long conversation. I'm sure you'll see lots of videos on how you can use social media. So I'll leave that over there. And then the other part is finding people that you can connect them with. If that is your job, if your job is as a connector, because you know that's going to mean that people are going to connect to you. Again, that's, our lead generating is our number one job as an agent. There are times that you're just going to have to find those people. So whether you see it online, you see somebody that's asking for, so you could hunt. I haven't talked to, Sarah in a long time. And I know that Sarah is a person, she has a big group of friends and all of this. And she is a person that's in the financial industry, whatever it is. Find out, it's like, there's got to be somebody that I could connect to her. So go find somebody that connect to her. You could do it from your couch in your pajamas at 3 o'clock in the morning if you can't sleep. That's the beauty of being online, that you could do that. Or if it is a way that you can, you're walking your dog and you see somebody that you happen to know, finding out from them if there is a way that you can connect them. There's so many different ways that you can do it, but it has to be your job. It
Yeah.
has to be. I worked with Keller Williams for a long time, and they always talked about 3 hours of lead generating. If you're spending 3 hours of lead generating and you're doing tactics, this is one of the tactics, or maybe this is your main tactic. There is a way to find those people.
One of the objections that I think is going to creep up in some agents' minds when they hear about this strategy, because they're going to say, "Okay, well, this sounds great. I can use my personal skills. I can use my personal relationships. I can make friends. This is a fun way to go about getting new business. And I can see that I can also connect with some of the most affluent people in my marketplace too. So if you're going for the luxury space, like this is a great way to
Mm-hmm.
go." But the one thing that
Right.
might be kind of like holding them back is, well, how long is it going to take me to go about building enough
Right.
relationships to then and dig my well in order to then start getting new business? So what would you say to somebody who is wondering, like, how long is it going to take for them to start seeing results from this strategy?
It could be a month or two. I mean, you could really meet somebody that could very well say, well, my cousin is looking to buy a house in the area. I'll give them your number. That could very well happen. And the thing is, if you're doing this basically every workday, you will find that person. That will happen, that somebody will say, yes, my cousin is actually looking. Can I give them your number? Which, of course, you're going to say yes. But one of the things that when I've worked with other agents, and I've had this happen to myself, by the way, it happens to all of us. We're like, oh my gosh, for like the last 10 days, I have been reaching out and I've been doing all of the things that I'm supposed to do, whatever it is that is your tactic, whatever column you're focusing on, and you have not seen that result. It happens to me personally too. So even though I know that this works, in the last, let's say, week or so, I have had a lot of real estate things that I've been doing that have generated zero money. And I'm like, really? Like all of this stuff works, right? However, I did something yesterday that I talked to the right person that I am now working with a buyer that will produce money, basically.
Yeah.
That can happen. And then the other part is, yes, I've been doing it for a while. So I've gone through the stumbling blocks. And then there are also some of those other tried and true. If you are looking to have a transaction happen in the next 30 days, that you might want to go the open house route or all those kind of things. But you have to put yourself out there and you have to ask for the business, not asking for the business, say, hey, I'm a real estate agent. Who do you know that wants to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? Probably not going to be your best tactic.
But if you're asking those personal questions like, hey, do you have any plans or whatever, that is a great for the business without sounding salesy. Now, do you think that Chet Holmes, like he is so right in saying that like 40% of any market, and that's how I think about it too, is like whenever I'm just talking to a person, I think like there's a 40% chance that this person is either thinking about or is planning to buy or sell in the next year or so. So that's, I think, just to keep in mind whenever you're going to these conversations.
They know somebody. I mean, it's a high probability that they are someone they know is in the market.
Definitely. So you spent 14 years at Keller Williams, right? You became a team leader. You were leading the other agents. You're coaching them. And I know from our previous conversations that you felt like you were going to stay there forever. But
yes, I did.
You did actually make this switch to a real broker. So what led you to that decision? And, what was that journey like?
As I said about Craigslist, I was an agent that liked the technical part of the business. So as far as things that were online, I was always educating myself on how I could utilize those tools and how I could get business from utilizing those tools and not from buying leads, but the other ways. And as I was with Keller Williams, I loved it most of the time. I really did. Although I saw some of these other companies that were just jumping over them so quickly when it came to technology and what you could do. And also, honestly, the way that they were teaching. So as being somebody who did teach other agents, I was seeing how far behind we were in our standard teaching and philosophies that were just things that were not as effective as some of the technology that was out there and how you could utilize it, especially because my main focus was on newer agents or those that were looking to grow their business. Those types of people, financially, you need to be making sales. I wanted to have that ability for myself, and also as I grew my coaching business and working with other agents, to be able to have behind me an organization that allowed me to capitalize on that. And so many things with Real are just intuitive. A lot of things are easy. And I'm around a large percentage of the organization that think the same way. It is
and
not.
What do you mean by that? Think the same way?
Yeah. So for me, again, and we all have different ways of thinking of this. I don't need to spend 30 minutes driving to an office, going to a sales meeting, and then that being an hour and a half, and the socialization, which again, I like that and I enjoy it. However, I can do so many more things give me 15 minutes of the nuts and bolts of what's going on, because I want to make sure that I'm educated, and then let me do the work that I need to be doing. And I feel like an organization like Real, it's behind all that technology that I have. And then the people that I am connecting with have the same type of thing. It's like, give me my bullet points. Let me know what's going on. If there is a video, that's great. Let me spend 30 minutes learning about that or hearing about what's going on, with the industry. And then give me all that support and have others that are doing the same thing with let's just do the business. Let's get to work. If I'm going to spend 8 or 9 hours a day, that would be like part time as a real estate agent. However, I'm going to spend that much time a day. Let me do that work so I'm more productive.
I think
That
that
was a
makes
big part of it.
Yeah, and it's kind of characteristic of even our conversation right now is that like a
Yeah.
lot of times when people think about culture in a brokerage, they think about the water cooler conversations that are happening after the sales meeting at the office. What we really need is more so like talking about stuff like this, like how do you go about getting new
Yeah.
business and what are the practical ways in which you can make that happen? That
Right.
is providing value to the other person. Basically, that free providing and sharing of value in terms of actually how to be better at the business, that's the type of community and the type of collaboration that we expect at Real from each other and
Right.
that we actually experience. So,
I agree.
so did you
Yeah.
say that you have to leave like right now?
Well, they haven't called for the gate yet, so I probably have like a minute or two.
Well, that makes so much sense, Susie. I definitely couldn't agree more. I think the technology at Real is not only super advanced, but it's very intuitive. And we're coming up with things that people aren't even thinking about in the real estate industry. I think that's one of the reasons for why we got our Inman Award of Innovation, from the Real
Yeah.
Wallet to Reason to all the different like natively grown apps that we have. It makes a huge difference versus something like KV Core, which is everything's bolted together. And I think that you guys had used that at Keller Williams for some time.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing is the community.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more about that front too, because that ultimately is going to be what stands the test of time. And when you have a local community, there's some power in that, which is, I think, one of the great benefits of Keller Williams. But then when you have an entire network, an entire brokerage of folks all across the country sharing ideas, putting it into Real Academy, that's where you're going to get the exponential power of the entire network. And I think that's why I came to Real as well. So again, thank you so much for spending this time sharing about how to go about getting strategic partnerships, how to grow your personal network, and your path to Real as well. So if anyone is interested in
Mm-hmm.
learning from Suzy about Real Broker, about getting some mentorship, about how to leverage those personal relationships, I'm going to include her contact details in the description below. And if you want to find out more about Real and find out what's happening here, go ahead and follow my channel and keep watching those videos. I'll put my contact details in the description below as well. So again, Suzy, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you guys. Enjoy.